Hey guys, today we're taking a look at the Radian Afterburner and Ramjet. So let's get right into the first 30-second breakdown. That's where the first 30 seconds, give or take, I give you guys my exact thoughts on this product before we get into the full review. That way you can just stop watching, so now you know exactly what I think about this product, or you can continue watching and find out exactly why I say those things, and it does help out with the YouTube algorithm. So with the Ramjet and Afterburner combination. So with this one, it's gonna be pretty simple, because with compensators, either they work or they don't. And this one works. It looks really good doing it, and it is expensive. So with those key points out of the way, a couple of nice things about it as well is this is legal in 50 states because it does not have a thread. You don't have to use a threaded barrel to do this, so it makes it legal, which is really cool to allow some other states to be able to have the benefits of a compensator like this. There's no timing involved with this. It is very simple to install with just one screw, and you don't have to use Loctite. Like I said, it looks really nice. The barrel looks sharp, it is accurate, and it actually works really well. They say 44% muzzle reduction. It's really hard for me to be able to actually test that and put that into a number, but all I can do is tell you what I felt during shooting, and I actually do a blind test, which is my very first time shooting, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit during the actual review, but it does work really well. It does help you keep your muzzle down like a compensator should, and I really notice it shines a lot in follow-up shots and transitions because you're just able to keep that dot inside your reticle or your sights away from being so snappy and a little bit easier to keep in line. So let's get into my relationship with Radian. They did send the guide rod that's in here. It's their compressor guide rod that we'll be talking about a little bit later in the review. But Brownells is the one that sent me the Ramjet and Afterburner combination. So I appreciate both those companies for sending these out for me to test. Now let's get into the full review and go over why I say these things in more detail. When I first got this, I really wanted to do a test that I could really see if this is working or it's not just a placebo effect where I see it and I'm like, okay, this is compensated, so it's gonna work. And I shoot it and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's fantastic because it feels less reduction. And I want to make sure that it's actually working. So here's that video before we get any further, just so you guys can see the blindfolded test. Hey guys, we're at the range testing the Radian Afterburner and Ramjet combination. So the plan is to do a blindfold test with this to really get an unbiased decision on how I feel about this. Is it just look really sharp on the gun, which it looks fantastic, or does it actually function really well and is worth the price? So here's the plan. We've got two guns that are very similar to each other. We got a Glock 17 and a Glock 45. With the Ramjet Afterburner combination, it makes them almost identical in length and weight. You got Surefire lights, and they're the same grip pattern and everything. There's nothing aftermarket with these, and they're both Gen 5. So they are very, very similar guns. I'm gonna take the Glock 17 as a control. I'm gonna shoot 3 shots with that just to get a good feel of what a stock gun feels like. Then I'm gonna put the blindfold on. It's gonna be loaded with Blazer brass ammunition. This is 124 grain, and they both are loaded up to the same amount, so they're the same weight. I will have both of these loaded. Kayla's gonna hand me one of these while I'm blindfolded. It's gonna be completely random, and then I'm gonna shoot them and be able to decide which one is which, and I will let you guys know which one I think it is. So the goal being is I should be able to tell definitively that this is different when shooting it blindfolded. We're out here at a private range. We have hundreds of acres, so this is a very safe test that we were doing, and we're gonna make sure we are as safe as possible by doing this. So let's go ahead and do this right now. I'm going to load this one up with a separate magazine of the same ammo. I'm going to shoot 3 rounds as a control so I get a good feel of them, and then we'll go into the actual test. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put my blindfold on. And the only one I could find in the house was Kayla's. So this is what I'm gonna be rocking. Okay. Am I facing downrange?
Yeah.
Okay. It's gonna be a stock Glock.
Yeah.
Redo that one. I hit the optic. Okay. Ready? That was a stock Glock.
Yep.
Am I good?
Yep.
Okay, that one was definitely the Radian. Okay. Let me shoot another one here.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yep.
Am I good aiming down range? Yeah, definitely a lot less. So there's a lot less, let me take this thing off. There's a lot less muzzle rise So it just felt a lot lighter in my hand, like I was able to snap down a lot quicker. Now what I'm really curious about is with the actual red dot being on here, is being able to see if my red dot is flipping as much or I'm being able to get down back on target. So happy with that test. I was able to actually tell the difference between the two, which was the goal between this, is just to be able to make sure I could differentiate the two. Because sometimes if you see something on there, it gives you kind of a placebo effect and makes you think it's gonna work no matter what, even if it does or doesn't. So now I'm really curious to see with the red dot, we're gonna do some shooting here on the dueling tree and see how I like it this way. And we'll do this without the blindfold this time. So now that you were able to see that video, you clearly saw that you could tell the difference between the two. And that was the entire goal with the test, was to make sure that it was not gonna be just me seeing it and me saying, okay, this is gonna work because Radian's a good company and they make really good stuff, and base my decision off of that. I wanted to base my decision off of what I felt and not what I saw or what I was kind of wanting to happen. So, because obviously you want this to work because it's freaking cool. I mean, it is awesome looking. That is one of the coolest parts about this, is how nice that looks. The barrel looks nice. The design they chose, how it wraps around the barrel. Like other compensators on the market, like this one, you know, back in the day when this came out, this was a really cool compensator, but this one just really forms to the gun really nicely and adds something to the gun and makes it look really sharp. So they mentioned on their website this does 44% reduced recoil. It is very, very difficult for me to test that because I don't have a percentage based on my wrist to be able to tell. They obviously did some kind of scientific testing to be able to get that number, and I can't tell you absolutely this is 44% because it's 43 and they lied. But it is definitely noticeable. What I will say is it is enough for me to say there's definitely something done with this gun and a noticeable enough difference that I think it is definitely worth it. It is not like, okay, it maybe helps a little bit. It's enough to know, okay, yes, this definitely does help. Is it 44%? We might never know, but yes, it is definitely a nice reduction to a stock Glock. Now that we've went over like the looks and the fact that it actually does reduce your recoil, let's go over the functionality. And that's something that's really big with compensators, and that's honestly kept me away from compensators for a long time, is because when I started out with this one, and it's a really cool concept and it worked fairly well, but you have to thread it on. Then you have detail or the set screws in the bottom that you have to set and everything, and use thread locker, and it's kind of annoying because you have to like time it and make sure everything looks good, and sometimes like it rotates a little bit and then it looks goofy, and then you have to like undo everything and reset it. And my problem was reliability. Sometimes you'd have issues with reliability with these. Sometimes you'd have to play with your guide rod weights and things like that to make sure it works fine. So with this one, I ran the stock guide rod first. I did not have any malfunctions. I actually haven't had any malfunctions since running this gun in this setup. But I ran the stock one just to see what a stock guide rod would do, because some people, after you buy the $370 barrel and compensator, you might not want to spend another $90 on a guide rod. So I wanted to see if it would work with a stock one, and it worked just fine. So that was really nice to see. And then I was able to get the guide rod. And the nice thing about the guide rod is you have 3 different interchangeable springs. You have 18, 15, and 13. So you can really play with that weight and get exactly what you want. So I currently have the spring that came with it, which is a 15. And so far it has been working great. I have not had any malfunctions. I might play with them a little bit because it is super easy to change these guide rods. I'll show you some B-roll here. But with this guide rod, it's so easy to rotate the springs and change your weights. I'm gonna really play around with this and really get exactly what I want, because this is my concealed carry gun. This is the gun I carry the absolute most out of any gun. So I wanna make sure it is as perfectly set as possible. So I'm gonna play around with that, but so far it has been working nicely. And just so you know, stock guide rod and the guide rod that I started with, the 15, both have been fine, no malfunctions or issues. So now going over the install and why this is legal in 50 states. So with compensators like this, you have a threaded barrel, which are illegal in a handful of states. I am not a professional with a bunch of other states' laws, so I'm not gonna get into that because that's an entire video and a different conversation. But with this is legal in 50 states because you have this set screw right here that you just put in, and as you can tell with the barrel, it has a triangle shape there at top. I'll show you some really close-up stuff here with that. But that is so you can just slide this on, and there's no wrong way to put this on. You can only put it on one way. You throw it on, you put the screw in, and it's set, no thread lock or anything, and you don't have any problems. I will update you guys to see if there's any problem down the road, maybe it loosening, but I have shot about 150 rounds through this so far and have not had any problems with that so far, so that is a nice thing to see. So there's another really important test that I wanted to do here, and with compensators, a lot of people think that it's just important to make sure your initial rise is lower. I'm gonna use super simple terms because sometimes all the other terms are confusing. I'll probably mix everything up. So your initial shot in the recoil with the rise of your gun that is wildly important, and that's where compensators really shine, is where they don't allow your gun to be as snappy. So when your stock gun, it might go up here, your compensator goes about here. But that is not just the only important thing with compensators. So what's another important thing is when you snap up here with your stock gun, your reaction and what you're fighting is to bring that gun back down. So when you're doing that, your gun goes up here and then you're snapping back down. And sometimes what tends to happen is you go too far and then you have to bring it back up. So I did a slow motion video side by side just to see the difference, not only of the rise, but where the gun returns. That is wildly important, especially when doing follow-up shots, transitions, and trying to get a lot of shots on target quickly and actually hitting your target. So with this video, you can see a bunch of different lines I put in there. I made this as scientific as possible and make it look super professional. So hopefully this test was helpful for you guys to be able to see exactly what this barrel and gun is doing. So that is wildly important in my mind when looking at something like this. And I think this compensator does a really good job of allowing you, to my best of my ability, to get that barrel back on target and that sight exactly where I want it and put follow-up shots as quick as possible. So now let's go over the added length and holster compatibility. This is going to be the exact same size as a Glock 17. That's why I chose the 45 because I wanted basically a Glock 17 when I was done with it. So if you're comfortable with a Glock 17, it's the exact same size. It is basically that, and that is why I compared this with my stock Glock 17 because they're very comparable. Now with holsters, this is going to fit anything you have for a Glock 17 or a Glock 19 that has like an open at the end of the holster. So if you have a Glock 19 holster, as long as the end is cut to where it allows that to continue, this doesn't add any width or anything to the gun to not allow it to go into these holsters. So every holster I have used that I use my Glock 17 in, or my Glock 19s, as long as it has an open hole in the end, I have had no issues with this. So now that we went over all the good things, let's go over the price. This is gonna be about $370 to $390 for the combination. You can get Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, and it is not the same for each one, so you can't put a Gen 3 on a Gen 5. It is generation specific. But a lot of people are gonna be a little bit iffy on that price, and that is completely up to you. Does this work? Absolutely, it does what it's supposed to. It looks very nice, and I think it is a good product, but it's gonna be up to you if that price is gonna be too much for you, or if it is gonna be something that is worth it for you and your project. So it's always my goal when doing these videos is to be able to help you make a better purchase decision, decide, yes, this is absolutely what I want and it's worth it to me, or maybe I will hold off in a little bit and I'll either get it later or it's just not something I necessarily need. As always, I'll keep you guys updated with any issues or malfunctions I might have with this. Radian as a company, they are known for having some very good quality products. Their charging handles, talent, safety selectors are my pretty much go-to for any duty-driven gun that I have. I always put them on that. And I have one of their lowers, which is fantastic, but they make some very solid firearms as well. So I don't see any problems in the future happening, but I will keep you updated as always. If you guys want to help out the channel and the things I do, here's a couple ways to do that. Down in the description is a link to my website and some discount codes that you guys can use to save some money from companies that I trust. A couple other companies are Howitzer and TA Targets. They support me and everything I do. Howitzer is a clothing brand that donates 5% of proceeds to charity, and they make some fantastic clothing. Absolutely love their stuff and wear it all the time. And Brownells, they support my channel a ton, and I appreciate them so much for what they do for me. You can use code TA10 to save 10% off an order of $150, and you can pick up one of these for even cheaper, which is helpful. Other than that, guys, thank you so much, and I appreciate you all.